Just think about the awesome possibility, right? If you think about if every single person was able to achieve all that they were created to achieve, how much more awesome is this world, right? How much more outstanding is your neighborhood, your community? I just can't even imagine what that's like. And I think as entrepreneurs, especially, we all have experienced those things where we thought we couldn't do it until we did. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, if I can do that, I can do this. And you connect all these dots. And I just think that if you think about if everybody could have the possibility of really living into what they were created to do, I just can't even imagine what that means.
This is the Entrepreneurs United podcast with your hosts, John St. Pierre and Rich Hoffmann.
Rich, for the first time in the Entrepreneurs United podcast history, which is 5 seasons deep, we have a father and a daughter sitting with us today. We have Tim and Madeline Regan sitting with us. Tim, as you know, is a dear coach of mine. So I've been working with Tim for a year plus now within his business. But Tim has a book coming out. The book, Shatter Your Fishbowl, Live Your 2 Comma Life. And Tim, I'll start here. Super proud. I can't wait for this thing to hit. I know a lot of people need to shatter their own fishbowls. I know in a lot of cases I had to, Rich has, we all had to. Give the audience here to start. Why did you write this book? Why was this so important for you to put to market?
Yeah, I think it's probably a journey like all of us that have in the back of your mind that you want to one day write a book. And it's something that just kind of itches at the back of your mind. And I don't think I even knew that this was the book that needed to be written until I started writing. My dad and I were in business together for a long time. And one of the things that he and I talked about was writing a book together and co-authoring it. Back then, we were going to call it Lessons Learned Around Grandma's Table. And it had some of the same kind of feelings to it. And so it was just one of those things where I started scratching the itch. And as I did, you started realizing, hey, there is a book here and there is something here that is probably, like I said, it was different than I probably even thought it was when I started originally. So
Madeline, I'd love to know from you, in your dad's book, he talks about the 2 comma life, not just financially, but in terms of freedom and abundance. What have you seen in terms of how your life has evolved as he's taken that on as a concept for himself?
Yeah, I think it's just like for a long time now, like the way he has encouraged me to go after things because I shouldn't be, afraid of limits or like that I might be stuck or that there's not, it's not a scarcity mindset at all that he has imprinted in me. And it's kind of something I didn't even realize until reading through the book. And I was like, wait, for so long now you've been, showing us this just in the way that you encourage me to live out my dreams and not be stopped.
And one of the 10 principles is God always provides. How have you seen that truth play out?
Yeah. So many ways. One of the biggest things that, me and my dad talked about, especially with the book, was most recently I decided I wanted to go to law school, and we jumped into that process basically head first, very late in the game. Knowing nothing.
We're enough. Just say it outright. We were completely enough, completely naive, had no clue what we were doing, right?
Yeah. So I did not even apply to law school until April. Turns out most people apply in December and it's rolling admission and just, whatever. And so come July, I'm like not getting into schools and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why am I waitlisted? Whatever. And in the middle of July, I end up, getting into a school that I felt like was perfect for me that, we talked about, we prayed about that. And then it's just like, that was just like a huge sign of like, we jumped in and maybe it was silly, but like clearly God had a plan and he did have a purpose for my life and he provided, that path. And so that's one thing, we kind of laugh about now, but looking back on it, like that was God's hand in my life and there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tim, I know from your story and our conversations that, passing this information forward, not only to your own family, but to others is at the core of your why and why you exist. And, a lot of lessons from your father passed down to you and the grandma's table. And so a lot of this is generation passing of knowledge. And a lot of people could just pass it on and not write a book, but there's a deeper reason. You want it to go beyond your family. You want to help other people shatter their own fishbowl. Where does that passion really come from versus, I'm just going to help my daughter, Madeline, my son, where does it come through to want to help others beyond your own family?
I don't know if I can say where it comes from, but I just think about the awesome possibility, right? If you think about if every single person was able to achieve all that they were created to achieve, how much more awesome is this world, right? How much more outstanding is your neighborhood, your community? Like, I just can't even imagine what that's like. And I think as entrepreneurs, especially, we all have experienced those things where we thought we couldn't do it until we did. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, if I can do that, I can do this. And you connect all these dots. And I just think that if you think about if everybody could have the possibility of really living into what they were created to do, I just can't even imagine what that means. That's exciting. I mean, it's so exciting for me personally. And so I think that's really what it is, John. It's just thinking about how much the world changes the minute we get outside of what we think is our possibility, to realize that there's an ocean of abundance that we could be looking into.
Yeah. And so in order to talk about the concept, right, of shattering your own fishbowl, you must have lived it. You must have lived in a fishbowl yourself. Can you bring us back to that time that you were in the fishbowl? And maybe you didn't even know you were in the fishbowl, but when was that time in your life where maybe you were in the fishbowl, didn't even realize it, and had to break through it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was probably much of my adult life up until I was probably my mid to late 30s, so when I was a kid, I tell this story in the book, but when I was a kid, we lived in an old farmhouse. And if you can picture these old farmhouses, they had like the big porch on the front. And then we had this door, the front door, where it was 2/3 of the way up was clear glass, and the rest of it was kind of wrapped in wood. And across the whole front of that house was our front room, TV room, dining room. It was just one great room. And we did everything. Those were where we congregated, we wrestled, my dad, brother, and I, like everything happened in this front room. And my dad and I'm probably about 12 years old at the time. My dad and I are in the middle of that front room, and we're talking about something, just having it's like a Saturday afternoon. And all of a sudden there's a knock at the door. He and I both turn over to look at the door, and there's a sheriff standing through that clear glass that we can see. I saw it in that instant, all of the blood drained from my dad's face. I don't know if he was scared. I don't know if he was embarrassed. It was an emotional event for him. He goes out on the porch, talks to the sheriff, comes back in and kind of feigns a laugh and says, oh, that's my buddy Pete from high school. He was just stopping by to see how we're doing. And then we tried to get on with the afternoon, but we couldn't, right? Because of that. I didn't know what it was at the time. Later came to find out that it was him stopping in to tell us that he was foreclosing on the house. They didn't foreclose that day. My dad was able to do whatever jiggering he needed to that they never did. But what that did is it created a fishbowl for me where I was always afraid to take risk. I was afraid to take financial risk that might put me in a compromising position. And so I saw that I saw that my business would not grow because I wouldn't make the key hire. I saw that when we were working with the thing about the kids and what were we going to do with the kids, you just framed all these things around don't take risk. And then all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, that's not life. That's not what this is about. There is abundance in life. And just like God took care of us at that point in time, will take care of us again. And I can have confidence in that. And I can have confidence that I can do the next thing and the next thing, regardless of what comes out of it. I think for me, that was one of the first fishbowls that I had to break out of, because it kept me from taking the action and taking the step of faith that's needed to shatter the fishbowl.
Yeah, I love that. So Madeline, I'm curious, some of the stories, obviously your father's sharing happened before your time, maybe, but how about yourself? Have you experienced with your father times where maybe you thought he was in a fishbowl and you saw him break out of it? Have you ever experienced that with him yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have like a moment where I'm like he was breaking out of a fishbowl, but like hearing what his fishbowl used to be was like news to me because of how he is now, and like what he's allowed, like encouraged me to do growing up. Like anything that I wanted to do, it was like, yeah, let's do it. What do we have to do to do it? And like just that kind of mindset, like there was no fear to take a risk ever. And so I think what's been even cooler is like knowing that he was breaking through fishbowls, and that maybe without even knowing it, that had such a lasting impact on me, because it's like I kind of look at it like he broke out of that fishbowl, so I never have to live in that one. Like I have my own fishbowls, but I don't have to go through that same one, because he showed me what it's like to not even have that as a fishbowl.
Well, that's a great place for a segue question there, Madeline. So you now have a fishbowl. I have a fishbowl. Rich has a fishbowl. We all now have a fishbowl. Other than the concept that God will provide, and other than the concept that take risks, let's just do it, what are maybe one or two other key things you've learned from either the story your father tells in his book and or living with him every day that is going to help you break out of your fishbowl at some point as well?
You know, I think a lot of it has to do, and this is something that I think is talked about in the book, but also has just been something that he's encouraged me with forever, is just that the people that are around you are really important. And so like, if I'm surrounded by people that are not going to lift me up or, you know, encourage me and instill the same values that I know I have in me, then, you know, my chances of breaking out of that fishbowl are so much lower, because they're going to only bring me down instead of, uplift me. So just the people that you're closest to are an opportunity to kind of elevate each other in a way. He explains it much better than I do.
So John, you had asked Madeline what's a fishbowl that she saw her dad in. I'm going to flip that around. I would love to hear Tim.
Like it.
What is a fishbowl that you have seen Madeline in, and how have you worked with her to go about breaking that fishbowl? So I'd like to go kind of past tense, not what's her current fishbowl, but what's a previous fishbowl where you saw maybe your parenting. You had one of those moments that your dad had with you. You had one of those with her, and you unintentionally contributed to this fishbowl, and then you helped her get out of it. Is there a story that comes to mind like that?
Yeah, I think for us, we were fortunate enough that Maddie played a lot of really good softball. And from the time she was little, she really enjoyed the game. But one of the biggest things that she would do is she would overthink the game. And it would limit her ability to just go and play. And she would overthink, like, wait, why didn't the coach put me in at this point in the game? And is that because I'm not good enough? Or is that because my bat's not on? Or like she'd have all of these second guessing kinds of things. And that's something we all struggle with, right? Just that fear of, am I adequate? Can I perform? Can I step up? But sometimes your confidence can be bruised a little bit. And so when Maddie was a little girl, as she first started, before she would go up to bat sometimes, and I saw her getting in her head. In softball, it's a little bit different than baseball. They have the girls wear a mask around their helmet so they don't get hit in the face with the ball. And before she'd go up to bat, I'd grab her by the mask and I'd shake her head and I would just growl at her, and in a way to just get her out of her head, get her to stop thinking about that and go up and just play. And that carried through really all the way through her career. When she was relaxed and not inside of her fishbowl, nobody that she could not catch. I mean, she was outstanding. And so seeing her, it was kind of this constant battle of she'd get back into that fishbowl and have some of those things. And then you get her seeing the abundance and relaxing, getting out of her head. And it was lights out. I think about it a lot because when there's a girl this past year who was ranked #1 in college softball in pitching, and Maddie played her as we were trying to get to the state tournament. Maddie played with her on her team. We knew the girl, but Maddie played with her and hit a double off of her in the middle of the game. And I'm like, so when you're on, you can hit the best softball pitcher that's throwing right now because you get out of your head and you can actually do it. So, I just use that. That's what comes to mind for me, Rich, kind of immediately.
Yeah. Madeline, did grabbing you by the face mask and growling at you, did it help in the way that he is describing?
Honestly, it started when I was so little that I just remember it happening. I don't remember what the outcome was after. And it just got and literally when I was playing rec, before, I literally have a distinct memory of being at the field in Frankfurt. It was a night game and it happening. I don't know if that was the first time or the first time I remembered it, but obviously I don't remember if I got a hit that day afterwards. I don't know. But, just as I got older, I know at least a minimum, it was something that we laughed about. So even if as I got older, he wasn't literally grabbing my mask, there was eye contact there, where we knew what the other one was thinking. It would at least make me laugh, and just kind of, calm me down a little bit. But yeah.
So my assumption is you don't walk around with a mask anymore, and there's nobody to shake it and growl at you. So what do you do now with the overthinking to get yourself out of that fishbowl? What's the coping mechanism that you have found after the softball experience?
Yeah. First thing, there's also a lot of crying phone calls to my dad and my fiance both when I get to that spot. And both of them are people that kind of can just talk me off the ledge a little bit. And it's just the calm down version of Maddie, it's literally fine, slow down, type of thing. So I would say I rely on my community, but also my faith a lot.
Yeah. So faith, and then going back to your trusted relationships to help kind of talk a little bit of, what is worthy of thinking this overthinking or thinking that deeply about, and what's actually not, and what can you take a little edge off on. That's great.
Yeah.
So for Rich, if I could just comment on that a little bit. One of the things that Maddie is outstanding at that I've witnessed that helps her more than probably I think she realizes, one of her rules is that it takes small, consistent actions to lead to compound results. And Madeline, more than anybody I know, she's like her mom. I'm not a hard worker. Maddie and her mom are. And Maddie is the type that she gets up every day and takes those small actions. But then that gives her the confidence when the going gets tough. Then she knows she can excel because she's already done the work along the way. So I don't know if she would feel that way, but that's something I witness about her too, if that's of any interest.
Yeah, thanks for that. Tim, why did you call it breaking the fishbowl? Why didn't you call it breaking through the glass ceiling, stretching beyond your limits? Like, we could probably riff on 100 different options for the concept. Why breaking the fishbowl?
You
Yeah,
just
so
asked his favorite question probably without even like.
All right. All right.
Yeah. So for me, it's a metaphor, right? I think of a goldfish, and a goldfish will only grow to the size of the bowl that it's in. And there's a lot of science behind it. The science is that the water actually starts to become toxic, and the fish starts to die a little bit, and it stunts its growth. And so my picture is that is an analogy for what we all do. We all have our own preconceived ideas. We have our experiences that have started to form the walls of our fishbowl. And in forming those walls, that's what's stunting our growth and keeping us the size that we are. And so I picture all of those goldfish that used to swim around at the carnival, the game when you used to throw a ping pong ball to try to get it in to win the fish. And I picture all these goldfish, and if they're sitting in the bottom of an ocean, kind of like we all are, we're sitting in our bowl, there's a whole ocean around us. We can see it. I see other people doing things, but somehow I never see myself getting out of that fishbowl and actually being the one to go and do that. And so that's, for me, that's just a really good visual that if I hear it, I instantly have that picture in my mind. And that was what did it, Rich.
Thank you. Tim, when you think of your 10 principles, which one of those do you continue to struggle with most that you need as the author? You've got to keep coming back and reminding yourself of that principle.
Yeah. Abundance always trumps scarcity. That's the one. Yeah, for me, because it's really easy when things are stressful or when things are tough, it's really easy to get caught in the way I like to think about it is you can either kind of put your hands up in the air and say, what'll I do? Or you can start rubbing your hands together and say, oh no, what'll I do? And when you get into the second, you lose all of the abundance that's around you. All you see are the problems. All you see is the scarcity. And that really limits your ability to get yourself out of that fishbowl. And so for me, that's one of the things I have to work on for myself is really to say, wait a minute, if you approach this with an abundant mindset instead of a scarce mindset, the answer's here, right? This is a solvable problem. There is more than enough resources available for this to happen. But I struggle to get myself into that mindset.
John, you do coaching with Tim.
Yes.
So what's a fishbowl you've worked with him on that maybe he wasn't aware of? I know one of the things that we do as a coach is we can hold the mirror up for people so they can see themselves in ways they didn't originally see themselves. Is there something in your coaching relationship with him that you were able to show him was a fishbowl and ultimately work with him to break?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind right off the bat is the fact that Tim's book is coming out in the next month or two. And I can remember the first meeting with Tim talking about his why and what he was doing. And Tim, I was just like you, right? I was the guy who was like, someday I'm going to write a book, someday, but I never knew what it was going to be or how I was going to put it together. And so Tim and I really connected on that level. We work on a lot of business things together. But when I heard about Tim's passion and why, I was like, no, we're writing this book. Like, this is happening. And I think just like me, I think, Tim, you had a little bit of, is it really going to happen? Do I really have this? So there's this imposter syndrome we all have as people going, do people really want to read what I have to say? Is this really important? Is it going to impact anybody? And I think the thing I love, Tim, about your mindset, which is the same as mine when I wrote my book, was if I could just help one entrepreneur in their business, this will be all worth it. Right? If I'm helping 2, 3, 4, oh my gosh, but if I could just help one, I think that's your premise behind your book as well that you brought to the table. So that to me, Rich, was, I was in it too. Can I write this book? Is it important? And seeing Tim just blow through it and write this beautiful manuscript that's coming out to the world. And Madeline, you got to be so prideful of seeing this come out. And when you actually go to Amazon and see your father's book there, tell me about that. Tell me about that must be a fishbowl you're seeing as well as I am. The fact that this gentleman here, who's your father, is writing a book that he's putting to market. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it's like really awesome because he has encouraged all of us, like I've said, like our entire lives, me and all my siblings, like to do what we want to do, like to chase after what we want. And like anytime I've been like, I think I want to do this, he's like, okay, how do we have to make it happen? You know, like what do we need to do? And like he's been that support person for literally everyone else in our family, and even like the extended family. Like that is just a big role that he has of like encouraging people and helping people get there. And so it's just like really awesome to see that, you know, he's finally getting something that he's been wanting. And I think it's just like all part of, you know, the 2 comma life, and seeing him live that out too, because it's like this is one huge thing he's wanted to do forever. And like he also has been wanting to get his pilot's license for forever. He's been working on that. Like it's like a huge, like it's just a huge, and you also get yourself where you've been wanting to go. And it's just really, it's really incredible. And I was one of the first people to read the book, and I'm like, I'm never like I flex that to everybody. I'm so happy that that's the case, you know, like I'm very excited. Yeah. Very excited.
It's certainly something we're all proud of, Tim, for you to be putting to market. And we didn't talk about it too much, but when you talk about your 2 comma life, I know that there's 2 commas and $1 million. So I know that's important, but it's not about the actual fact of $1 million. It's about living that life, living the life as if there is abundance out there, because there is a lot of abundance. Can you talk a little bit more about, you know, why you think it's so important for people to realize that they too can live a 2 comma life?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think the biggest thing is if you say $1 million, that could be a lot or a little depending on who you are. But and you can't really picture that. It's not really it's a tangible thing, but it's not tangible in my mind. But if I say to you, you're going to live a millionaire lifestyle, that instantly conjures some form of picture in your mind. It pictures abundance, and it pictures, you know, generosity and freedom and those types of things. And it kind of goes back to the same premise that we talked a little bit before, where, you know, if you think about what you were truly created to do and what your life would look like if you lived in that abundance, it doesn't matter if you've got $3 in your bank account or $3 million in your bank account. It's living in abundance and generosity and freedom and all of those things. I mean, that's what it's about.
Love that. Well, great spot to conclude this conversation. Madeline, Tim, thanks for joining us today. Tim, when your book comes out, which will be very, very soon, I'm assuming it'll be on Amazon, there'll be an audiobook, where can people go get more information today about you, connect with you, and or find pre-orders for the book or anything like that?
So no, everybody can find us at pv-wp.com.
So that's PVWP, Prairie View Wealth Partners.
Yeah, with a dash between the two. So pv-wp.com.
Awesome. And you can go there to learn more about Tim. Obviously, you can connect with Tim on LinkedIn as well. And we'll make sure to promote the book on our LinkedIn channel as soon as that comes out. Tim, Madeline, thanks for joining us today on the Entrepreneurs United podcast.
Thanks,
Guys, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Stay tuned as John and Rich unpack today's conversation.
Story for you. I don't think I've ever told you.
Ooh, juicy.
There aren't a lot of those.
No.
So when I was a teenager, I got invited to go to someone else's church youth group event. And it was a fundraiser, and they had a carnival type atmosphere in the basement of a church. And they had all this different stuff going on. And one of the things that was going on was you could pay them a couple of bucks and throw a ping pong ball. And where you threw the ping pong ball was in, of all things, it was plastic fish tank.
Yeah.
And if your ping pong ball landed in one of the fish tanks, you would get to take the plastic fish tank home, and you would keep the fish that was in it. Little did my parents know, I was a pretty good ping pong ball thrower that ended up translating to college and all. And I went home with a fancy tail goldfish. And it had 2 tails. A fancy tail goldfish has 2 tails, just beautiful goldfish, actually. And it lived in that plastic bowl. And then guess what? It got a little big in the plastic bowl. It didn't outgrow the plastic bowl, but I wanted it to have more room to be able to move around. So we got like it was like a 5 or 7 gallon fish tank. And we put the fancy tail goldfish in that. It was the only fish in that fish tank. And I remember it now, and it had too much algae on the sides, and I didn't clean it. And all I did is keep putting water into it. But I kid you not, this goldfish that is supposed to live very little, this goldfish lived for a couple years, and it was the size of a baseball.
Wow.
Big, like bigger than a baseball if you looked at it end to end. And the first time we had Tim on, I didn't think of that, but I thought of that when we were talking here, that I've got a real life experience of if you take a goldfish, and it was a literal goldfish, and you move it from the smaller plastic bowl into the 5 or 7 gallon tank, it has room to grow. It's true. I saw it. I experienced it. And another thing I saw was when you change the water in it too abruptly, you know what happens?
Dies.
Unfortunately, I killed the goldfish because I went in and I wanted to clean up all the algae and I meant to give it a better environment, and all of the bacteria and stuff that the goldfish got used to living in was removed, and it had all this clean water at the time, but that clean water was actually a little toxic from where it had grown from. And I think that's also akin to sometimes we can a little too abruptly try to change everything in our world, and it actually hurts us. But if we could just transplant ourselves with some of the old water from our life into the bigger tank, we can grow ourselves. So I had to share that with you. It was so analogous given the conversation today.
Yeah, I love that, Rich. Thanks for sharing that story. And I think way too often, I hear this over and over again, and sometimes you need to break out of a fishbowl to then look back at your prior fishbowl and go, that was silly. Why did I spend so much time in that fishbowl? But
yes,
there are some key concepts that I think I took from this conversation, and I believe have played a big factor in my life in changing my fishbowls, upgrading my fishbowls, whatever you want to call it. One of them is how to change your paradigm. I think way too often we get stuck in a specific paradigm on something and we can't get out of it. It's so critical to be able to change and shift your paradigm and your thinking on things. 2, and Madeline talked about this a little bit, is the people around you. The saying that you are the average of the 5 people around you is a true saying. And you always want to make sure that you're with a group of people that are growing and developing as you want to develop. That's part of the reason I think you and I just enjoy each other so much, is we're always constantly wanting to grow and learn and grow ever since we were in our 20s, grow and learn and grow and learn. And so we help each other grow as we do that. And it's just so powerful, as opposed to not having those types of relationships. So that's another one. The third one for me is imposter syndrome. I know that we all suffer from imposter syndrome, but you have to get over that in order to break through your fishbowl, because you have to realize that you're good enough for that next bigger size fishbowl. So that's a big one that came to mind. The next one is small actions have compounding results, that Tim was talking about, Madeline. Like those small actions, I've seen that over and over again. It's part of my core philosophy right now of patient ambition. Have patient ambition. Just consistently put in those small building blocks time and time again to get your ultimate result. I think that's a big one. And then the last one is have an abundance mindset. And I read a book recently that was referred to one of my other coaching clients, Dr. Bob and Mary Layler. And the book they sent me was called Die with Zero. And the whole book concept is, look, one thing that's for sure in life is we're all going to die at some point. Don't die with tons of money in the bank account, not living the experiences you wanted to live. Go live life to its fullest, right? Don't wait to try and experience the experiences that are out there. It's there. Go get it. Don't have a scarcity mindset. Have an abundance mindset. Go experience life that's there for you to enjoy. And so I think the changing paradigms, average of the top 5, imposter syndrome, abundance mindset, and small actions compounding results were 5 big things that I wrote down as we were going through this conversation that I think are critical to breaking out of your fishbowl that Tim and Madeline talked about.
When Tim talked about, and you brought it up again, the consistent actions lead to compound results. It made me think of the book by Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect.
Yep.
Very good book, but the whole book is about one of Tim's principles. How cool is it that Tim has 10 principles? And there's probably a book somewhere in there for each of those principles, that if you wanted to read a book that only had 1 principle in it, you can go buy The Compound Effect. You want to read a book that has 10 principles in it and adds that type of value, you want to buy Tim's book. And I love where we ended with him, which was abundance, generosity, in freedom. I can't imagine one person on this planet, if we went up to him and said, would you like more abundance in your life? Would you like the ability to be more generous? Would you like more freedom? I can't imagine one person saying no to any of those three questions. And I can't wait to get into Tim's book more.
Yeah, can't wait to get a copy of his book at the Entrepreneurs United Empowerment Experience here in October. And thanks for joining us in this conversation today, fellow entrepreneurs. Look forward to next week's conversation. Rich, that was another good one.
Yes, it was.